I can hear you. But it didn't make it.
No, I can't.
Already.
Okay. Call the meeting to order at 5:30 PM, January 18th, 2022. All rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Get muted. Wonder if everybody heard the. Do you want any?
Roll call, please.
Do we want?
Emily Hunt Bailey. Richard Jones.
I think you tried to unmute.
Alicia Lundstrom.
Here.
Can y'all not hear me?
I can hear you now.
Thank you. Dr. Garashambo.
Here. We have a quorum. Thank you very much, board members and public. We appreciate all of you being safe and healthy. Members of the board, we have two board members who are not able to make the meeting. And there will be some items that consequently we will have to delay. And that refers to, in terms of adoption of the agenda, apologize, adoption of agenda. Are there any changes? Yes, so let me tell you what they are. What on executive session, we will need to delete the executive session in order so that we can have more than 3 participating in the purpose of the executive session. And then we also will entertain a motion to delete the consideration of board comments, which was more of a matter of board discussion on purpose, pros and cons. So board members, that's what I feel is what we need to do tonight is to
Can you keep an eye on that? please?
hold on. Ms. Lundstrom, can you still hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We just thought we had a glitch here.
Oh, okay.
Make sure. So what I said to you is that since we have two board members not here, it'd be inappropriate for us to try and conduct a superintendent's evaluation in executive session. And I do apologize for that, but I
Sure.
think it's in the best interest of we board members to be able to participate fully and completely with all of us present. So what typically would happen is that we would reschedule that at a time that we all would be in agreement with, and we will set that up with you. Otherwise, it'll be at the next board meeting.
Okay.
So I entertain a motion. I would like to entertain a motion from board members to delete the executive session and to delete the board comments.
Would you like a recommendation?
Is
Uh,
that your recommendation, Mr.?
Yes, sir. My recommendation is we adopt the agenda with those changes.
Apologize. Mr. Jones,
Well,
are you making a motion?
I am not making a motion. I have a question.
Yes.
I understand the executive session on the superintendent's evaluation, but there's no need to strike the other action items as we do have a quorum.
I'm just suggesting that we that we have all five board members to participate in board comments.
But the board members that are at the meeting should have the same right to have comments, whether the other two are there or not. My point being that I understand striking the executive session for what's in the executive session, but to strike the board comments would be irresponsible. I mean, there's three board members there. We should be able to comment on the meeting that we have. It's irrelevant about the two board
Okay.
members that are not there.
Well, the intention of the board comments was not to begin the board comments, was to begin the discussion on the purpose and pros and cons on that, but I will leave that on there. Let's just have a motion to delete the executive session.
I make a motion, we postpone the executive session.
Thank
I
you.
second that.
Motion has been made by Richard Jones to delete the executive session. And it was seconded by Alicia Lundstrom. All those, would you have a roll call, please?
Emily Hunt Daly. Richard Jones,
Aye.
Alicia Lundstrom,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz, Dr. Archambault.
Yes. As a point of note, we will leave the action item, Ms. Lundstrom, Mr. Jones, on there because we will have to have a motion to amend our regulation so that we can proceed with the executive session, and I'll get to that at the appropriate time for you. Let's see. Let's go on to adoption of minutes, January 4, 2022. Is there a recommendation, Mr. Perez?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, Board, I recommend that we approve the minutes of January 4th as presented.
Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of that date?
So moved.
So moved by Richard Jones to adopt the minutes. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been seconded by Alicia Lundstrom to approve the December 7th, 2021 minutes as presented. Roll call vote.
Emily Hunt Daly, Richard Jones,
Aye.
Alicia Lundstrom,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz, Dr. Archambault.
Yes. Let's continue on. Thank you, board members. Continue on recognition. Are there any recognitions tonight?
Mr. President, board, audience, this evening, there's not a formal recognition, but I would like to take a moment to recognize the health department, Sonia Hernandez and her staff, just being so busy the last couple of weeks with all of the cases that have been occurring across the district. She's going to talk a little bit about this later under the superintendent's report, but I can tell you that there's at the minimum 127 cases within the district that have occurred just since we returned from the winter break. So I just need it. I hope that everybody can acknowledge the fact that they are working diligently, because not only reporting each one of those cases, but each one of those cases requires contact tracing, notification, et cetera. So it's a pretty significant amount of work that they're doing. And also the COVID response team is working diligently to try and keep our schools open the best we can. So we're, we've always talked about the factor of minimizing the virus and doing everything we can, the best we can with COVID safe practices. The newer challenge is staffing the schools. So it's a double pronged challenge. And I just want everybody to know, public, that we're working very hard to make sure that these schools stay open. If you remember, not too long ago, we were required to shut a school down after 4 cases. So just to give it some kind of perspective, we have approximately 130 cases now, and we were able to keep a lot of our schools open. Now we've had to close a few just for a few days. Most of them will be back on back from virtual learning on the 24th, which is Monday. So it's a lot of touch and go, and but I just want everybody to be confident that way. We do try and do everything that we can, because we believe face-to-face is the best source, the best method, the best mode of education. So we want to stand behind that. And then we also understand the social emotional aspects of it. So anyway, with that, I'd just like to acknowledge the team and the people that are working very hard, diligently at doing their work to do what's best for the district. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Let's continue on. Mr. Perez, are there any citizens to address the board?
No, sir. No, there are no requests for citizens to address the board.
Thank you. Let's move on to presentations. Mr. Perez.
Okay, first up on presentation, we have Grants High School that will be presenting the world at Grants High School and some of the activities and the learning that's happening there. So, Mr. Widener.
Good evening, everybody. I do have a presentation that I want to share with you. It's a video, so I'm going to try to share my screen, and let's see if you can get that. I'm going to do that right now, and then we'll start the video. All right. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Board President, members of the Grants-Cibola County School Board, and community. We would like to take this opportunity to introduce ourselves and our progress at Grants High School for the 2021-2022 school year. My name is Lane Widener, the principal of Grants High School. I am pleased to have with me this evening the members of our administrative team who will introduce themselves at this time.
Hi, I'm Jackie Jones. I am the assistant principal and athletic director.
I am Stevie Elkins, assistant principal.
We will begin this presentation with Mrs. Jones and GHS's why.
At GHS, we believe it is critical to know and understand where we are going in order to get there. Our why provides the administrative team, the instructional team, and the entire functioning body of GHS with the information to determine strengths and weaknesses in the process of attaining our school-wide goals. The why of GHS determines not only the goals of GHS, but aids in determining why these goals are critical and how they become attainable. The attainability of these goals is dependent on the why of all stakeholders. At this time, Mrs. Elkins will give you a brief overview of our DASH plan.
In conjunction with our why, GHS develops an individualized DASH plan every semester, which serves as the how to our why. The DASH acronym stands for Data, Accountability, Sustainability, and High Achievement. Our DASH plan has two focus areas that guide our instruction at GHS in order to provide the best possible experience for students. Our focus areas include data-driven instruction and standards alignment. Paired, the two provide teachers with an opportunity to analyze their own classroom data as well as school-wide data to ensure that standards are being addressed with rigor for all students. At this time, Mr. Widener will introduce the board to some exciting progress with GHS's career and technical education pathways.
GHS has been in the process of implementing new and refining previous CTE pathways. We are excited to be introducing our students to the following pathways: agricultural sciences, animal sciences, biomedical engineering, broadcast journalism, including the presentation tonight and Angry Jack Productions, computer sciences, and our welding program. Our students have been given the opportunity through these pathways to explore their future career interests, and we are excited to be able to provide this for all of our students. We anticipate expanding our CTE pathways in the future to provide even more opportunities for the future leaders of our community. Next, we would like to briefly take you through some of the notable data points this year for Grants High School.
Currently at GHS, the data that we utilize the most are Illuminate Mathematics and English Language Arts formative assessments, which measure our quarterly standard proficiency for 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students. We also, along with New Mexico PED, utilize College Board assessments as our summative data. In this presentation, you will find data for both quarter 1 and quarter 2 for mathematics and English Language Arts, as well as PSAT data for 10th grade students and graduation projections for the 2022 cohort.
English 1 data remained exactly the same for both quarters at 39.6% proficient. English 2 averaged 13.6% proficiency for both quarters, and English 3 averaged 25.5% proficiency for both quarters.
Algebra 1 averaged 5.3% proficiency for both quarters. Geometry averaged 12.75% proficiency for both quarters. Algebra 2 averaged 5.2% proficiency for both quarters.
In contrast to Illuminate, College Board assessments are not necessarily standards driven. Rather, the PSAT is divided into two main sections: evidence-based reading and writing, and math. Each section is scored on a scale of 160 to 760, and the total is the sum of both sections. Overall, PSAT scores range from 320 to 1,520. The average PSAT score is about 920. Currently, 20% of 10th grade students scored what is considered average or proficient.
In looking at the class of 2022, currently there are 143 students that are on track for graduation pending successful completion and earning of credits for all spring classes. There are 34 senior students who, as of spring, require at least one credit recovery class in order to get caught up with graduation and their cohort. We want to thank you for being part of this video tonight and for listening to our presentation.
Thank you. Is that the extent
Thank
of it?
Are there any questions?
Board members, or do you have any questions?
Mr.
Yes,
President,
I have a question. Yes, hi, Mr. Weiner. So when would
Lindstrom,
these,
Board Member Lindstrom, go ahead.
at what grade would these pathways start?
We start at, it starts at 8th grade. And so when the kids are at the middle schools, they complete an interest inventory and they kind of identify which pathways they want to be on. And then when they come to high school, then we offer the career courses and the dual credit courses that help them to work towards an associate's degree or an advanced degree. So they're partially there by the time they graduate.
Okay, so is anything being done at the middle school at this point for the more advanced kids? So in other words, they're on that advanced track, because you were talking about honors and AP pathway, adding that, but I feel like they need to get an earlier start. The high school is too late.
I agree with you, absolutely. We have been in lots of conversations with a GCCS consultant, Dr. Williams and Ms. Sanchez, and have been planning kind of these pathways. And our goal is to start rolling those out next school year.
If I could interject, please, Mr. President.
Yes, please.
So this is the beginning of the career pathways that we've been talking about for a few months, and now we want to invest a significant amount of the Carissa ARP money. So we have designated, I believe, $7 million to building the career pathway. So we're at the beginning steps of it. We have made some progress, but the question, Ms. Lundstrom, as far as bringing it down to the middle school, is definitely something that we advocate and want to support. That goes right along with the next step plans. So we're in the process of aligning all of those types of things with the next step plans, advanced courses, career pathways. And as Mr. Widener mentioned, we do have a consultant that's working with us. Right now we're at the stage of finishing up a lot of discussions with our stakeholders, including the NMSU staff, and collaborating with our resources, with their teaching and equipment and supplies, materials, as well as ours. So we're building that articulation as another piece of that. But there's a lot of work to do, and we have just begun that the building of career pathways just a few months ago, when it was determined that we would invest in this well worthwhile venture.
Okay.
Mr. Jones?
I was just gonna, I know that our percentage of proficiency is abysmal, but it's tracking right along with the rest of the country. I mean, it's I don't know. I don't know the point or how to get my point across right now. When you say 35% to proficiency, 26%, and I do know that we're tracking with the rest of, well, with a lot of the rest of the country. Now, Texas is not tracking that way. Florida is not tracking that way. I mean, do we see an increase in that percentage of proficiency in the future, in the near future? And then how do we get those proficiencies up is where I'm going. I mean, I know we can blame it all on COVID, but man, you know, when you see 26% proficient, it's disheartening. And I do realize we're aligned with a lot of the country right now, but it's extremely disheartening to me.
Yes, sir. I'd like to address that if I could, Mr. President. So, yes, you're absolutely correct that we're in line with a lot of the rest of the state and the country with some of these scores, but it's not acceptable to us. And as far as the question about improving that in the near future, that answer is also yes. As we progress through not only career pathways, the other side of that is having our coaches and our teachers become well-versed in the district learning plans and the collaboration that's part of that. And so as we move to, we're just at the beginning steps of that too. I don't blame anything on COVID, but it did have an impact on how we were, we started off we jumped off the starting blocks nice, and then we got hit, but we're now at the point where we have an extremely competent group of instructional coaches who are sharing their expertise with teachers. And once that system's going and aligned, we will see improvement in these scores, because we feel the same way. It's unacceptable to us to look at these scores and think otherwise.
Thank you, Mr. Widener. Your response?
I just wanted to comment kind of along the same lines as Mr. Pettis. The work that's going on our PLCs is really very focused. I'm sure Ms. Sanchez will talk about that probably, or has talked about a lot of the work that's going on. Mrs. Black could also provide insight to that. Our PLCs are much more structured this year. We are looking at the standards. We're looking at the district learning plan. We're looking at student work. We've just now gotten to a point at the end of the fall where we're taking the information that we're pulling from the student work, and we're coaching the kids. We're going back and we're reteaching those standards, and we're trying to pull them up. And so, Mr. Jones, you are absolutely correct. Our data it's disappointing. And I don't believe we should blame COVID. I don't believe we should blame virtual school. I think, now we've gotten to a good place where our teachers are really teaching the standards, and they're really going in depth with the standards. And so it's exciting work that we're seeing in the PLCs. I would like to invite any of you as board members to come by and drop in on a PLC. At GHS, our PLCs are on Thursdays. And so if you want to see kind of what we're doing with the district learning plan and the standards, it's good, it's meaningful work.
Ms. Lundstrom, did you have additional comments, questions?
Oh, no, thank you, Mr. Widener.
Mr. Jones, any other thoughts?
I please don't take any of my comments on bashing our school district, because I'm not. It's concerning to me is all that where our percentages are. And I was trying to reiterate that we are aligned with a lot of other districts, and for sure other states. Please don't think any of mine were negative comments. It's just a little disheartening to listen to the numbers.
I fully agree. And I think we're going to get better. Sorry, Dr. Archambault.
Mike, I have a question regarding the interventions you are implementing in order to address the needs of those students, first of all, who are having serious difficulty, and then how are we sustaining the enrichment programs for the higher advanced students so that we ensure that they also are able to continue to explore their accelerated learning or their giftedness.
Sure. When I first came to GHS in 2018, we began looking at a pathway. Well, we began rolling out AP courses, and we had gone from honors courses to AP courses. Under the previous administration, a lot of our honors courses had gone away. We were focused on AP, and that was kind of a start. Now we've gotten to a point where we're adding to the AP, we're adding to the pathway. We've brought back some of the core honors classes that have been at GHS for many years. And we're making sure that our staff is trained in, if we say we're going to teach biomedical, we're investing in the professional development to make sure that our staff knows how to teach kids on a biomedical pathway. When we talk about engineering, we rolled out a program called Project Lead the Way last year, where we're making sure that our staff has the tools that they need to provide that rigorous instruction. And as we look at the pathway for advanced placement, we're looking at adding more across all subject areas.
The other part of my question at the beginning was, how are we addressing, what interventions are we utilizing in order to address the students having greater difficulty?
Right now, we have a all-inclusive tutoring program. Where the last couple of days we've been virtual, and that's hard. And so a lot of our kids that need interventions or need supports can take part in, if you need help with your AP chemistry class, there's a science teacher there after school who will help you. We've got those interventions, and then we've got classroom interventions going on as well. And so we're trying to target those kids that need the support. And that's a good thing that comes out of the examining student work. We're kind of seeing which kids are struggling.
That's good. That's what those collaborations are meant to do. Ms. Lundstrom. Did you have any comments yet?
No, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I just saw you there and I appreciate that.
I'd like to add to that, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Perez.
so I'd like to just interject that along with what the high school is doing at the district level, we have a team that's actively working on building the advanced classes catalog, which we just posted, Dr. Martin has just posted on the website. So we want to organize and make it more available, more accessible, and more open to see, so parents especially can see what kind of advanced courses are. We've begun the list. So the other part of that is Mr. Brown wants to promote. We want to promote all the AP classes and gifted. One of the things with the gifted program is we want for the community to know that how that works. It needs to be out and open. If somebody suspects that a child or their child is gifted, then they must have an easy access to check it out and see if that pathway is going to work for them. So there's some work that is happening in that area, and we have a team that's working on. That's another project that has just begun. And I'd like to reiterate with the struggling students part of this. The examining student work process that happens in the PLCs is probably one of the most powerful interventions that we start with at the schools, because it looks at every student's product. And so when you take a classroom set of work, you don't just look at part of it or the average or the high. It looks at every single student's work. And when you do that as a team, the teachers can discuss, look at carefully each of those students that are struggling, and then make plans as a teacher team on how to address that better between that point and the next PLC. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any last words, Mr. Weiner?
I just want to thank you all. The video was produced by our broadcasting program, Angry Jack Productions. I did want our anchor students to present it, and unfortunately, like I said, we've been out virtual a couple of days. So if you go to the GHS website, we have a program, a news program that we do every day called the Daily Announcements, and it's really a neat program that is student-led. It's a career pathway. We have anchors, they're reporting news, and so check that out if you have a chance. It's posted every day at 10:30.
Thank you. Thank you all. for taking the time to present to us. It is really, really appreciated. We look forward to hearing more success stories from the Grants High School. Thank you. Mr. Pettis, let us
Yes,
continue
sir.
on.
So next up, it will give a broader picture of academic performance. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Pettis. Tonight we'll share updates from the academic department. The academic department has evolved quite a bit in the past year. We've added 3 positions to support the mission to engage every student in culturally and linguistically relevant standards-based learning. And it takes the leadership of the entire department to make these changes and to sustain them. Our academic department is working together to make sure that all student needs are met, and that we have the resources to support teachers with all that they do as well, and what part each of us have in that mission. But we all understand that our parts are interwoven, and we work together on that every day. We help each other and we support each other, and I'm very proud of the development of this group in a short time and how much we've accomplished over that short time.
I can hear you without the mic. Can everybody hear okay?
Ms. Lundstrom, did you hear?
Yes, I can hear fine.
Thank you.
So as our department has evolved, so has our mission of change. And under Mr. Pettis' guidance, we've divided this change up into 3 phases. The first phase includes the implementation of the initiatives, including the district learning plan, the quarterly assessment, data collection, and research of high quality instructional materials and practices. And something that we have to remind ourselves of is that change takes time, persistence, and patience. The implementation of the district learning plan is going well, and as I have reported in the past, our professional development offerings have increased. Our instructional coaches have stepped up and provided a lot of the sessions that they are really good at letting me know which teachers are asking for which sessions and what we need to look for. We're searching for some new sessions to include inclusion, co-teaching, and some more opportunities in next gen science standards. In the coming months, we'll implement a professional development section on our academics webpage to include upcoming opportunities for professional development sessions on Canvas and other online platforms through NMPED and other high quality offerings that are available, both synchronous and asynchronous. Phase 2 is where we begin showing results, sharing those results and resetting goals with expectations for marked improvement. As a district, we have set goals, and in most cases, so far this year, we've exceeded them. Now, at the beginning of the second semester, we've readjusted those goals and have higher expectations for more improvement. Phase 3 is the part of the change where we become the experts in data collection, data-driven instruction in our district learning plan, and our quarterly assessment data analysis, leading to intentional intervention for individual students with a mastery of the standards. And this is where we can share that success, and then we share with others how we got there and how they can get there too. So right now, as a district, we've been diligent with phase 1. We've provided continuous support in regards to the district learning plan and the quarterly assessments, and we've provided opportunities for professional development sessions. We've utilized our examining work our protocol, as you heard Mr. Whitener mention, and we've seen marked improvement in teacher expectations, assignments, and the ability to target interventions for student groups and for individual students. We're going to continue with phase 1 pieces, and then we're going to add them to the continuation of the phases of phase 2 pieces. Now we get to begin in phase 3, showing the successes of the hard work of GCCS teachers and administrators, instructional coaches, and everyone that's involved. Before we look at some district student summaries, I want to say that as a district team, as campus teams, as the instructional coaching team, we look so much more granularly than these summaries. We look with multiple student risk factors. We look with demographic data. We looked at the whole picture before making a blanket intervention group or a decision. And there's so much more than one assessment that is shown in this data.
Hang on just a second. I think they're having trouble hearing you. I want to slide it.
Go ahead and go to the next one. So this is our Q2 Illuminate Math Summary, and it shows some areas of success and some definite areas of need. And the percentages at the top and the bottom of the graph show the percentages of students that are proficient and advanced. So the line there at the top and then the row at the very bottom. Every grade level or subject has shown a significant increase from Q1 to Q2. Now keep in mind that Q1 and Q2 are assessing different standards, but we're looking at our system here. And so from Q1 to Q2, kindergarten math went down 1 percentage point and algebra 1 went down percentage points, but every other area had gains. In some cases, 20% gains, in some cases, 10 to 15%. And so I know that some of those numbers look really low, but in a lot of areas, there were big gains. The numbers that are blocked out are the ones that are below 10.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of data to absorb. Okay, first column is kindergarten, and first, second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way to algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. Those are, as Board Member Jones commented on, these are difficult times, and we're seeing that the secondary level, we all have to really understand that academic performance has been challenging for our students. So what I see is something reflecting what Mr. Whitener had mentioned, but thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood what was there. Please continue.
So this is a summary of our English language arts as it was in the previous one. This is just a summary of kindergarten to 12th grade. So this year we did start to assess 12th grade as well as the other grade levels. And once again, these are overall percentages also showing growth for our standards. In most cases, as was with math, the percentages did increase from the first semester, from the first quarter to the second quarter. Another source of data that we have this year is our interim assessment from the state. And so all this, we call it the IMASA, and all 3rd through 8th grade students will take this 3 times this year. They'll take it the beginning, middle, and end of the year. The IMASA is aligned with our state standards and with our summative assessment, and it's used to track and predict student performance and growth toward grade level proficiency. And so our quarterly assessments are measuring data that our students are learning per quarter based on the district learning plan. And this interim assessment is measuring all standards and student growth. And so they're tested on all standards 3 times during the year. There are 3 areas that are tested. This first one is showing reading, and I just picked out 1 grade level. And so we have it for all grade levels, 3rd through 8th, but this is just showing 4th grade right here. You can see a significant increase in our target students while there's a decrease in the need support and near target. And so we've seen this all the way across the board, that we've seen an increase in our green, which is on target students here. So this one shows, like I said, this is reading. And then the next one is going to show the language use. And we see the same thing here. There's a few less students that were tested in 4th grade. And then the final one is math. And on the math, you'll notice on the first one, we didn't have any students on target at the beginning of the year in 4th grade. And that was just about the same in every grade level, 3rd through 8th for math. And then on almost every grade level, we did see a decrease in the orange, which is needs support, and an increase in the nearing and on target for our students in math. And these IMASA tests were made available to us because we participate in K5 Plus and extended learning. And so when we do the K5 Plus, then it's a requirement for us to participate in this assessment. And it's proven to be a good source of data for us with pretty immediate feedback after we finish the assessments. This is an example of when, this is actually Milan Elementary, and this is an example of one of the presentations that was given on January 3rd as our teachers came back. So in addition to some team building on January 3rd, our teams also looked at their DASH benchmark goals. And this is, like I said, Milan Elementary, and they reviewed their goals by grade level, and then they saw that they exceeded in most cases their original goals. And so they set new goals for 30, 60, and 90 days for this coming semester. I was able to sit in on a data meeting that day with Cabero and their kindergarten class, and they were sharing some successes in there as well. And so they were sharing, they were discussing the intervention ideas that they had for the individual students and for the groups. They were talking about how they could work together with others. As we came together as instructional coaches for the first time in January, every one of the coaches had something like this to share that they shared with their teams on meeting goals and how excited they were for so many of the goals to be met. As you can see that we're working hard on student achievement in so many angles, and I'm happy to be able to share some successes. As Mr. Jones said, some of these are very small percentages, but we're seeing increases and we're seeing successes after our students have come out of a really hard time for them. And intervention is something that's a hot topic with all of us and what we're using for that. And so for intervention, we continue to utilize the examining student work as the #1 data point for what we need to do going forward. The data analysis for all of our sources, the IMASA data, individual student work, our Illuminate data, all of it factors in together on what we're going to do for individual students, what we're going to do for groups of students. Our instructional coaches are talking about creating a bank of intervention activities, addressing the needs and the gaps, and individualized instructions from teachers, from EAs, from the instructional coaches working with those students. And as I mentioned earlier, that there's several areas that we're working on. It's a team of all of us. We're talking about the social emotional learning of the students and where they are. We're talking about their attendance. We're also talking about the development of our teachers, our new teachers included. And so that's why it takes the rest of our team to work together for all of this. And so attendance is one of the big, attendance and outreach is one of the big areas that we're working on. And so the next slide, Trish Garcia will share with you what we're doing for some of our outreach to get to some of these students. Trish?
Good evening, sorry about that. Here's a short overview of the implementations our outreach team is working on. Our beginning phase was phase 1. We developed procedures to align with the Attendance for Success law. We had to create all new attendance letters for the district and improvement plans. We formed EWS teams at all of our sites and proposed budgets so that we can reward students for good attendance. Continuing on to phase 2, training on the Attendance for Success Act, provided all the schools with toolkits and training for all our EWS staff, implemented reward and tracking systems where I'm proud to say our outreach teams are doing some amazing rewarding with our kids. We are building relationships with our families, assessing the needs of our students, utilizing district and our community resources. And now we're adding in phase 3. We're sharing of our ideas, collaborating with our reward systems, celebrating our student successes, sharing all our processes, and we are continuing to build relationships with our families. Next slide, please. Here's a quick attendance update. You can see by this graph the attendance at each site and the overall rate with the district. And every school weekly this updates, and they're able to see the attendance for the district and at their sites. So next slide.
No. Go back to
The attendance.
Wait,
Okay.
Trish, Would you go back to that slide? I just wanted to, I didn't get finished scanning my.
Okay.
overlays across there. Hold on. Thank you. Continue.
Okay. The Attendance for Success Act requires us to categorize all of our students into one of 4 tiers based on their attendance. A tier 1, which you can see we have 56.5% of our students in, is whole school prevention, and we reward good attendance for student absences with less than 5% of the school year gone. Tier 2, we are at 30.3%. This is where we start individualized preventions for any student that has missed 5 to 10% of the school year. Tier 3, we're at 11.1%. These are chronically absent, 10 to 19% of the school year. We start early intervention plans with all of these students. And tier 4 is at 2.1. They are considered excessively absent or more, and we implement intensive intervention plans at this point for all of our students. Next slide. And then lastly tonight, here's a short overview of some of the exciting initiatives that our outreach team has implemented. You can see we have traveling trophies for the best school attendance, and I believe Blue Water retained their trophy. Grants High School stole it from Los Alamitos this 9 weeks. All the sites have received their prizes. We've partnered now with Engage New Mexico. They will help us to reach out to students who are missing a lot of school. Collaborating with our equity coordinator to align our resources, and just tracking of daily of all our attendance for all of our students. And back to you, Raina.
Thank you, Trish. Now we have, I mentioned that we have some efforts for mentoring our teachers, our new teachers, especially those teachers with our alternative licensure, so that they can help their students better. And so we have Patty Black to update you on what's going on with our new teacher mentoring. Patty, can you unmute? I'll go ahead and share for Patty. So from August to December, there were 40 new teachers with the district, and
She's
Patty
back in here.
Is she back?
Yeah, she couldn't unmute from hers, so I'm gonna let her have mine.
Okay, thanks.
All right, go ahead.
So I apologize for my technical ignorance, but for those of you who don't know me, I am Patty Black, and I'm the GCCS district teacher mentor. The purpose of having a teacher mentorship program is to provide beginning teachers with resources to optimize their success. As the teacher mentor, I assist with an effective transition into the teaching field, to build on their initial preparation and to ensure their success in teaching, to improve the achievement of students and retain capable teachers. This is a new position that I wish the district had when I was a brand new teacher. At the initial meeting in August, I met with beginning teachers to set up goals and objectives for the year, as well as lay the foundation to build relationships that ensure teachers' social and emotional needs are being met. I support our international teachers by extending a personal connection, making self-care a priority, and guiding them to find the support they need. I offer systematic district-wide professional development training for beginning teachers. And this slide shows a list of some of the things that I have helped teachers with this year. Raina, if you could please go to the next slide. this graph shows that with the district-wide support and continuous training, mentors and beginning teachers developed an understanding of district expectations, our district learning plan, and how to effectively work together to achieve these goals. In order to achieve proficiency with the district learning plan, I present various resources and strategies to meet student needs. So the top graph shows the level of teacher knowledge for the various programs on the date of hire. And then I asked them to rate themselves on the bottom graph, how they feel about these programs now, and they have significantly improved. There are so many new resources that I must train myself before I can train the new teachers. I've led groups of teachers through the alternative licensure process. I've discussed options with them. I've guided teachers to complete their individual PDPs, and I've helped them to become familiar with district programs, procedures, and policies. I am available to support teachers every day. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide that I have that shows where the teachers rated me on my presentations and whether or not I was available for support. But I would also like to thank our academic team. We do work together and we all make sure that the teachers and the students are getting the support they need. Are there any questions for me?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much.
And finally, we have Tasia Martinez with the efforts that she has for equity success and how all of that ties back into our student learning.
Thank you, Reina. Mr. Board President, Superintendent Perez, members of the board, let me formally introduce myself. Yade, my name is Tasia Martinez, and I'm the Equity Success Coordinator for the district. The Equity Success Coordinator position focuses on 3 key areas: SEL, social emotional learning, CLRE, culturally and linguistically responsive education, and equity. Our district is currently collaborating with the Department of Health to develop a framework that will address the SEL and CLRE needs of our students and staff. We will be utilizing the SHAPE assessment, which is an acronym for School Health and Assessment and Performance Evaluation. This assessment will specifically identify the needs of the district, allowing for our resources to be allocated appropriately and ensuring sustainability. By addressing the SEL needs of our students and staff, our district will adopt a trauma-informed approach, which will restore balance and harmony. In the area of equity, our district will aim to identify the unique needs of our students, ensuring equitable access to all resources that meet the unique needs of each student for present and future success. Equitable and quality resources will reflect who they are. As Equity Success Coordinator, I am also involved in our Student Success Dialogue meetings with Acoma Pueblo, Laguna Pueblo, and Navajo Nation. Various stakeholder meetings, tribal consultations, the Indian Parent Advisory Committee, the Indian Policies and Procedures, as well as the TIP. I also collaborate with our district outreach specialist, Ms. Garcia, and teacher mentor, Ms. Patty Black, to align our resources. Next slide, thank you. So part of my responsibility as Equity Success Coordinator is to also work with our school counselors. So currently we have 7 school counselors and we'll be adding 2 more school counselors. We have weekly meetings to review policies, updates on school site goals and case reviews. I provide support and coaching to counselors. And then I also ensure that we're providing adequate training to our counselors. So there's a list here on this slide of the trainings that we have either participated in or will be participating in the near future. So our counselors have already participated in the New Mexico School Counselor Association training, and the NMMOST, or the New Mexico Out of School Time Council training. And we are scheduled to do the QPR suicide prevention, train the trainer, and cultural humility training. We will be partnering with the University of Montana to do the cultural humility training. And then to kind of highlight a couple of our efforts, we have worked with the Breaking the Silence New Mexico, where they came out to 2 school sites, San Rafael and Blue Water, working with grade levels 4th, 5th, and 6th to educate on the basics of mental health. And we also have done some training, some trauma-informed training with Los Alamitos middle school staff. So that's inclusive of all staff, not just the teachers. We've worked with the custodians, the administrators, the EAs, the attendance staff, the front office staff, the principals, working with everybody in the school to become more trauma informed. We also have worked with our bus drivers. This is the first year that our bus drivers are receiving formal training, and specifically mental health training, so SEL training. And they were really engaged, as you can see from that picture on there. Raina, can you go back to that last slide? Thank you. As you can see on that picture there, our bus drivers were really anxious to learn more about mental health and SEL and how they could better support our students. One of the key highlights from that training was that our bus drivers are the first contact and the last contact for our students who ride the buses. And so it was really important to really convey to them the importance of that relationship that they build with our students. And just to quote one of the teachers as their takeaway from the training, the teacher had said, "I was able to take the tools from this training and immediately apply them to my next class. It reminded me that the students are all operating at different levels and that we have to put students before curriculum. Then the curriculum will come more easily." 22 out of the 36 staff members that did reply to our survey were very satisfied with the SEL training and felt that they could apply the content immediately to their classroom instruction. And mind you that this is only the beginning of our SEL efforts, and we do work, as everyone had said, within our academic department. We do work collectively because SEL, equity, and CLRE affect in every aspect for our students and our staff. It's not just focused on our students, but if we as a staff are not okay and we are not well, we cannot perform at a proficient level. So it's really important that we're also inclusive of our staff's well-being as well. Any questions?
Amazing. Any questions, board? Is that it? Is there any more?
That's it.
That's the extent of the presentation.
Yes.
Board members, that is the end of the academic presentation. Any comments, questions? Board member Lundstrom, Jones?
Yes, hi, I have a question. So just if you can walk me through, if a student falls in the below or far below category, so what's the next step as far as the interventions?
So it depends on the subject. It depends on which standard we're talking about, and then it depends on the classroom and the student, and if they're having some other difficulties with other standards and such. And so we're really looking at it per standard. So for example, if we found on examining student work that they were struggling with a standard, we also found that on both of the assessments, the Illuminate assessment and the IMASA assessment, that they're struggling with that as well, then they would start intervention in the classroom. So the teachers have classroom intervention during the school day. So they would have either small group or individualized instruction. And then they start the MLSS process with them if it's a continuous thing. And so the MLSS process starts with some paperwork. It starts with observations of students over a period of time, not just one incident. And then they start tracking data. So they start tracking what interventions they have, what they've done with the student, what others have done with the student. And as a group, they make a decision as to whether this intervention is going to help the student within the classroom over time, and whether those interventions are helping, or whether they need to do further testing on the student or other things with the student in the classroom. And so really, the MLSS process helps us to do individualized, very individualized interventions with students and not just groups. But that's where they would go, kind of as an overview. So.
And so when are they referred to after school tutoring? Because I think that's a great idea. How do kids qualify?
For after school tutoring, of course, it depends whether the parent agrees for them to be after school or if they have transportation and such. But for after school tutoring, that's one of the qualifications. If a student is struggling, then they'll definitely be part of the recommendation for that. Parents can also recommend the tutoring for their students. And so it can go both ways, not just from the teacher recommendation, but parents can also recommend that. And then depending what the teachers are focusing on after school, whether that tutoring session is appropriate for the student or whether they're doing some more individualized things during the school day. It's a little bit different at secondary. I know Mr. Widener said that tutoring is available for all. And so they have a math tutor, an ELA tutor, a science tutor, all available for students to go to after school.
But the parents need to provide transportation?
Dr. Martin, has transportation started for after school tutoring yet?
As far as I know, I've not gotten any request for transportation as of yet. Right now,
okay.
Transportation is being provided by parents, but that's something that we can consider if there's a request for such.
So we did offer that at the beginning of the year, but there wasn't a high enough need for it at the beginning when we first started tutoring. And so normally what happens is when we come back now and we begin the tutoring efforts after school again, then we reevaluate that. And as the numbers increase, this is what we usually see is that we'll request for transportation when we have a high enough demand for it.
I'm just looking back on the slides. Board members, in your packet, there's a little PowerPoint section there. So I'm just referring back to that just to see if there's anything that I want to comment on or ask questions on.
And I have another question. So it was brought up relationships with the families, which again, I think that's very important. You need to have a good relationship with the parents and the teachers to ensure student success. So if you could give me a little bit more detail, what do you do to build the relationship with the families?
So that's one thing that we've brought Trish Garcia on. She's really been working on those relationships with families, where before it was only the teachers or the administrators or the staff at the school that were reaching out to these families. And so now we have somebody at every campus that as soon as students are they're marked absent, then they're calling home to see, you know, is there anything that we can do from the school side to help these students get there? What are the barriers that our families are facing that are keeping them from having students at school? And so if we can help with those barriers, whether it be a transportation issue and we can get them connected with transportation, if somebody in the home is sick, or if the student is sick, what can we do and what documentation do they need? And then if there's other issues, sometimes the parents have a hard time getting their students to come to school. And so if there's other issues, that's where Trish and Tasia are working together to use community resources to help those parents with some of the things that they need to get their students back to school. And so we've seen a few success stories in the last couple of weeks of community resources being used for those things. And so I know a lot of the efforts with the attendance rewards have really been fruitful with our attendance numbers, because some of our students, like I know Trish has a story of one student that all she wanted was an alarm clock to help her get up so she could get to school in the morning. And Trish provided that. And then now they're celebrating so many days that they've been in school without missing or without being late. And so those little things that have really helped increase our attendance numbers from last year. Being intentional, I think, with those rewards and with those plans, and then the relationships. You know, we found out a lot of things just by those conversations of what our families need or what barriers they have, so that we can overcome those barriers and get kids to school so that we can teach them.
And I want to just add that if we have a student that's maybe absent quite a few days, the schools will reach out to me and tell me what's going on, or I'll reach out to them and say, a parent has called me, what's going on? They can pinpoint every little detail of what's going on, how far away that child is from a bus stop, if the parent's not getting up with them, if the parent is taking 10 kids to different schools. They know everything going on with those students. And that's just from their contact, you know. I give them kudos, the contact they're making with our parents. It's just great.
Thank you.
Can you pull up that one slide on attendance, the success for all scale? 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
The tiers.
The tiers. There you go. There.
That one.
Open that up.
If you go from current slide, it'll take you to that.
Okay. I love this picture. Especially the bus drivers looking like they're having fun.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Missed it.
Yeah, this didn't pop up on
There you go. It's there. Just go way up to the top bar and enlarge way up there.
Well, it should be right. Should come on right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Okay, Trish, we're talking about. I really need. We ought to really congratulate those kids in tier 1. There's most of our kids, just about the little over half.
Yes.
But we have. I'm just trying to understand how you and schools tackle the tier 3 and tier 4 students. When we identify a student who has reached tier 3 or tier 4, I understand that that triggers an intervention response by the school and you.
Yes.
To communicate with the parent directly. And how do we keep a record of how frequently we contact the parents, and then ultimately how quickly the student begins to change behavior in being absent? How do we
Yes.
do?
Yes.
Because it seems, go ahead.
Actually, at tier 2, they're kind of on our tier 1. We're going to reward every time the students in tier 1.
Okay.
Tier 2 triggers a phone call home where we just start seeing what's going on. Is there a reason they're starting to miss? That is documented. Actually, I have a form that's actually documented on when we make that call, what we found out. Tier 3 requires a letter home that requests the parents for a meeting. In that meeting, we put in attendance improvement plan tier 3. And on that plan, they discuss with the family the root problem. Is it something at home? Is it something at school? Is it they're not getting along with somebody? We get to the very bottom of that. We put interventions in place. And from there, we hope to see those tier 3s go to a tier 2. And we are seeing a lot of our tier 3s, I can tell you, go to tier 2s. If they are in a tier 3 and they continue to miss, we will generate another letter that will go home requesting the parents to come into the school. We meet with them and put them on I'm trying to find the name of it.
Contract.
Oh, an intensive improvement plan that will require more interventions, possibly starting to use outside resources. And they have to continue on that plan until they are out of a tier 4. So ultimately, we'd like to see all of our students in a tier 1 and tier 2, but we are rewarding any improvement. And I get calls daily on, they've had 3 or 4 students at their sites move out of tier 4s back into a tier 3 and 3 into a tier as well. But if any of these students are absent, we're calling homes, as much as we can if we're not sure where they're at, finding out what's going on, why are they absent. With COVID, up right now with our numbers up, it has affected our attendance. We do have a lot of kids that are out quarantined, but at our sites, we know where they're at, when we should expect them back, and make arrangements for them to get into their Google Classroom or pick up packet work if they're not able to do that.
Okay, I'm just imagining the necessary interconnectivity between all different parts of the system to ensure we attack this problem and to ensure we are working closely with parents who are struggling for various reasons. We have probably a substantial percentage of our students who are living in single parent homes or living with parents, not typically their moms and dads. And so we have probably a variety of circumstances that work against the student being able to attend school or to participate satisfactorily in a virtual setting. And
Absolutely.
And so what are some of the more common reasons why, other than COVID, that students are in tier 3, or what kind of interactions are we getting when it comes to parental interaction with the schools and with you?
Well, of course, the most common, of course, they have symptoms, any one of the symptoms of COVID, and the state has required them not to be in school. So that is sending a lot of our kids into tier 3s and tier 4s. And
Okay.
You're correct. I spoke with a great grandfather raising his grandchildren. So that in itself is a huge feat. For him, school wasn't important. So it's hard for him to instill how important it is, for his great grandchildren to come to school. One of the big reasons, a lot of them, is they overslept. The little girl with the alarm clock, of course, we got her an alarm clock. The parents' reasoning, trying to think of a lot of the things that they've told us. Sometimes they'll tell us that their student is picked on. Then we ask if we can set up a meeting with, usually it'll be like a dean of students or an assistant principal, to see what we can do to rectify that situation. But right now, honestly, a lot of the comments that I get is, I'm not going to send my student to school while COVID is so bad.
Okay.
And our tier 4s, a lot of our older students fall into that tier 4. And I think it is solely falls a lot on them because they're just choosing not to attend some classes. And I don't think they realize how quickly, 3 or 4 classes in a day is going to equal 20% or more of their time gone.
Is it not possible that students who are in tier 4 could have a long-term history of academic failure?
Yeah, oh, yes. Yes, and when we meet with a family or meet with a student, I always look back at their history of attendance. And I've been with the district so many years that I know their parents' attendance history as well. So I know if it's a pattern, and we pull up their grades too, so that we're able to offer tutoring or give them ways that they can bring up their grades as well as improve their attendance.
Okay, I know what it is that you desire. You desire results. You want to see these numbers shift towards the green.
Yes.
And the board does encourage you to continue to do your best. We extend our well wishes to all the staff members who are involved with this to have, if they're the ones who are making first, contacts with parents, we could encourage them to be, as they always probably are, very courteous and respectful and non-judgmental about the circumstances in which these children live, and just see if they can find solutions that will be of help to the parents as they get through this, because sometimes parents may see themselves as all by themselves and not knowing what to do. And so oftentimes it would be vital for our staff to be a positive contact. This is a negative interaction. We're talking about interacting with parents for an attendance problem.
Yes.
So we have to do all that we can to assure them that we have their best interests at heart, and whatever it is we can do to help them overcome whatever the circumstances are, we'd be happy to do that. I really appreciate your efforts of all of your staff and all the principals and teachers, especially the teachers. They know exactly which ones they are.
Yes.
And I saw some teachers on the Zoom tonight, and I encourage you to keep positive and sustain your effort with the children. Encourage you, support your fellow teachers, so that we can work on this particular issue, as well as reinforcing the great attendance that we see with tier 1 kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, any last comments on the academic? Did we have a section on graduate?
Grants High School shared their graduation with
Okay.
their presentation, and we will get you Laguna.
Why don't we
estimates.
see
We've had
how
some
the
people-
graduation statistics work out at the next board meeting, so we can get ourselves ready for that, because that's really important for board members, is how many of those kids who graduated, who are seniors, are going to make it. Thank you. Mr. Pettis.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board. The next item is about the legislative program lobbying effort. As you know, the short session started today, I believe. And
Did you miss C, classified salary?
Okay, I'm sorry. I did skip one. So next up is our classified salary adjustment. And how could I miss that? The classified salary, this is we made the board aware of this in the past board meetings. We worked on it for hours and days, and trying to come up with the best solution to have our staff increase. And not only in line with what the state, what we're predicting the state is going to do with our minimum salaries, but to just be a step ahead of that. So you know that the state's working towards a $15 an hour minimum. We are working towards a $16 an hour minimum. And with that includes a lot of peripheral actions that we talked about in past board meetings as far as compression and those types of things. It is difficult, it is challenging, but you know, the choice is to move forward if we want to and do the best we can to improve our the environment, the well-being of our employees. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Maldonado.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Mr. Superintendent. As Mr. Perez did say, we are revisiting this proposal. We did do some extra work with this, and just to catch everybody up, we want to move from a minimum of $12 per hour for our employees to a minimum of $16 per hour as a mid-year adjustment before the next budget round and fiscal school year, which starts on July 1. So, however, whenever this gets approved is when we will continue to move to the next step. And so let me just walk you through sort of anticipated dates here. And so if we receive approval today from the board, we'll take it to the New Mexico PED. We anticipate we can do that by Friday. And I'm giving them probably about 2-3 weeks to review it and approve it, and hopefully they would approve it by February 11th. If they do that, then Ms. Salazar from Human Resources can work with our union and their membership to create and obtain a memorandum of understanding which adjusts the current agreement to accommodate this new change. When we budget this for next year, we'll have to do another MOU that accommodates that next school year. If when we get that done, if we can get that done by the 16th of February, then we'll do some work to update the salary schedules in order to reflect those changes. And then we will be able to issue, have that reflect on the first pay date of March 11th is that pay date. As a reminder, the funding would come from each of the various funds from which those classified employees are currently paid. Some are paid through the operational fund, the 11,000 fund. Some are paid through federal funds. Some are paid through transportation, some through food service. And we would submit a budget adjustment request in order to reflect the changes for each of those different funds in order to adjust our budget in OBMS. So for the operational ones, we would take it out of the operation funds coming from the increased impact aid money and payment in lieu of taxes fund, which is the wind farm money if we had to do that. And if they didn't approve that, then we would move to ask the PED to approve ARP funds for that until we could build it into the school year 22-23 budget. So here's how it would look. Here's the budget impact for each of these particular funds. As you can see, going down in this column is the particular fund and what it's called, and then the current budget, how that would reflect in the proposed budget, and then what the difference is. I won't go through each one of these. I'll just allow you to peruse those. The bottom line is it comes out to $655,264.66. So how does that impact our overall total budget? Well, here's our current budget in OVMS, which is $82,678,000. We're proposing that would go to $83,333,000, again, reflecting that difference of $655,000. I'll show you any questions about this before I go to the graph to show you one more thing on the spreadsheet.
Board members, any questions? Yep. If not, continue.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen and show the spreadsheet one more time just to refresh your memory. So this affects 246 employees. Of those, 15 are earning $12 an hour presently. Those who earn between $12 and $13 would be 87 employees. So that would affect a good number of our classified staff. And as I told you before, I may just remind you that we take, even though there's a minimum, we take the entire salary schedule, which has 10 tiers going in columns as well as steps going this way. So as each year progresses, you kind of go down this way to see where that person is going to land up. And so we are adjusting all of those columns and all of those tiers to reflect the shift to the right, an increase so that the minimum is $16. The effect is that it will impact each of these types of employees and each of these funds, all right? These highlighted in yellow, as I identified, are 6 employees who are currently at the top of their scale. They're at the very end of their scale. So even if, even if we moved the scale to the right, they would still not receive an increase in that particular, in this particular year, because we weren't able to adjust that scale to the right all the way without going back for negotiations to completely revamp that. So in order to mitigate that, we propose doing, that's called compression, where they're unable to make any movement. So in order to mitigate that, we took the average of what a lot of these employees are earning right now and what would be earning in that step, and would take that money and take this same type of raise and pay it out over the remaining months as they earn it. So as you know, we can't pay retrospectively. So whenever the starting point is that we receive approval from the OBMS and from the PED is when we can start the wages increases. And so this reflects the very top number of how much will be paid out as we go through the approval process. We'll take money out of that because we won't be paying out for 6 months as we would maybe for 5 months. So we're going to make some mitigation attempts to equalize the amount of earnings that those 6 employees would be losing. So we would pay that over the 6 months. Next school year, when we adjust the salary schedules again, we'll attempt to make those positive changes. Again, there might be some employees who fall out of that again, and we'll again make these mitigation efforts and pay that hourly stipend or the stipend for the year. We're not able to adjust the hourly stipend, so we're making it up for these 6 employees with this type of payment. Are there any questions about how this worksheet works? Okay, so I'm going to share one more thing. So what we are asking the board today here is that when you get to it, we're going to be asking the board to approve asking the New Mexico PED for approval to implement a mid-year salary wage increase for all classified employees, asking the board to approve the expenditure of up to $655,264 from various sources in order to fund those for the remainder of the year. I'm happy to answer any questions for you. Mr. Perez, that's my presentation, sir.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question, Mr. Maldonado. So how do we compare to, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I was just wondering how we compare to other school districts in the state. Are they paying $16 an hour minimum wage?
Well, I guess I know part of that answer. Maybe Ms. Salazar, if she's on, could answer as well. But in the region that we're in, the $16 an hour would bring us up to a very competitive wage. Where we are now, obviously, would not compete with larger areas like Las Cruces, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, those areas, those metropolitan areas, Rio Rancho. But for our region here, I believe that this is a very competitive and sustainable salary that would be able for us to make it for us a lot easier to attract and retain qualified employees. And as well as when you couple that with the total amount of the compensation that employees receive through benefits, through their retirement and all that, it's pretty substantial. It's much more than you would receive at a restaurant or maybe even some private companies. So I believe that really catapults us to a level that makes us very competitive and very desirable. Did I answer that question for you, Ms. Lundstrom?
Yes, I was just wondering, as far as Gallup, McKinley, I don't know if you know what their minimum wage was.
I don't, but I can certainly ask that question and get that to you later on. I'm sure it's more. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say I'm sure. I believe it's probably just a bit more.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we definitely need to remain competitive.
And then if you couple that, I want to mention that we couple that with our sign-on bonus, our rural stipends, our hard-to-fill stipends, all the various programs that we offer. We are offering a very, very substantial and competitive compensation program for employees. So I'm very excited about that. Also, with our new reimbursement, health and well-being reimbursement program, which offers $600 in reimbursement for health and well-being programs. You add all those things together, put them all in the big bucket, and we've created quite a substantial compensation package.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Continuing on. D, legislative program.
Okay, Mr. President, Board, as I started to say earlier, the legislative process at the state began today. It pretty much, there are no surprises, but I believe that we stand behind some of the things that are being talked about at the legislative session. And providing raises for educators. I know there's a 7% amount talked about for professional licensed people in the system. There also today was an announcement about while that's 7%, there's a proposal to expand pre-K, and early literacy programs, which we know is going to benefit our school system very much. So we advocate for those. Of course, higher education, and then there's a $10 million proposal for the state's dual credit program, which I think we can take advantage of as well. So those are not any of the surprising proposals at the legislative session. But alongside that, as I told you in the board meetings before, we're also pushing with our local legislators, and we will be continuing to push for some funding to secure the new maintenance transportation compound that we have presented on a few times to different groups, and also a new technology place building where so we can get up to date with that program as well. I have here with us Mr. Ramon Montano, and he's going to be assisting us through staying connected with the state, not necessarily as a lobbyist, but he's going to be working with me and of course with the board on keeping what the latest on what's going on at the state level, and keeping an eye on some of those things that are interesting us. So welcome to our meeting, Mr. Montano. Mr. President, I'd like to bring on Mr. Ramon Montano.
Mr. Montano. Good to see you. Unmute, please.
Unmute.
Oh, I can now. They didn't let me earlier, so they're keeping me in check.
Now we got you.
Meeting.
Thank you for
Mr.
being here.
President. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, superintendent. As superintendent said, yes, earlier, of course, with the 7% increase that the governor's asking for, there is talk that that's not going to be enough to keep teachers from going elsewhere to other industries, to doing other things, to the private sector. So there's a concern there that we're going to stay following, along with some of the new expanded pre-K that they're looking at as well. Around $195 million they're going to look at putting into that. The 7% raise are looking around $276 million for increases as well. Quite a bit of money going into education. And unfortunately, this year's a lot of the hearings are going to be online like we're doing today. But I was talking to some of the senators out of the LFC to kind of get a feel of what they're looking at, what's going to take place. They did talk about education. They did talk about funding for transportation issues that schools are dealing with, lack of bus drivers. Some schools are looking at possibly even cutting some routes out because they just don't have the bus drivers. Due to the COVID situation, plus salaries are just really low, and they're trying to get them to where they need to be so they can sustain themselves. But I'm just, like I said, I've been doing this for 20 some plus years now, spending a lot of time at the Capitol, especially in the education realm, looking at what's coming out of the different committees and what we need to stay focused on, and some of the issues that are going to impact you guys as well. I think it's important to share the stories, not only with your local legislators, but with the rest as well, the rest of the delegation out there. Because you'd be surprised that some of the issues that you stress to your local delegation, your neighboring schools and schools across the state are dealing with the same issue. So it's very important. Oh, did I? Can you hear me now?
No, it came back. There you go.
Yeah, you're breaking up as well. Who knows? I live in Rio Rancho and the internet goes in and out on a regular. So, but I think it's important to share the story with all legislators so they have an understanding of what your issues are. So that way that helps support your local legislators when it comes to hearings, when it comes to talk about funding and what needs to be funded. That way, some of their school boards who've shared their concerns might be identical to yours. And we can drum up more support when we do share those stories amongst the delegation instead of just the few that you have representing you.
Cut out again.
I'm done talking. Am I done? Technology.
Yes, I know.
And of course, New Mexico School Boards is going to be very active there as well, through Joe Guillen and Lily May, through that process as well. But I think it's important to attend those education meetings that are going to impact the funding and what exactly is going to be funded and what might not be funded. That way you guys can start preparing for next year as well. If you want to start looking at the big picture, I think it's great to start establishing that now for next year's 60-day session.
Lost you.
Cut
How
out
about
again.
now?
You're back on.
Do you have any questions, Superintendent, members of the board, Mr. President?
Well, I think, Mr. Montano, that it's important for us to maintain an understanding of what is going on and be able to respond quickly. Board members, do you have any questions or comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay. We know it's a short session. It's going to be over in mid-February. So these things are going to move fast. If you and Mr. Perez can stay on top of this, and if there's any way we can, as individual and as board members, can reinforce a point that is of concern for us in any of this, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to support any efforts that we think is essential to get something passed that is going to benefit our county, our school district, our students and our staff. Transportation continues to be always an issue. Salaries and wages and all the other things that go along with that. We know this is a short session, so they hope to try and just stick with funding if at all possible, but stay close in contact with us. Keep us informed. We would like to have another update either with you or through Mr. Perez at the next board meeting, because by that time we will be right in the middle of it. Because the next board meeting is February 1, so we should already see action taking place between now and then.
Definitely, yes. I'll look at the calendar to see what's calendared and what committees are taking place in education with the LFC and LESC to see what hearings we might want to show up to. It's virtual to stress some of the concerns you face as a district at those hearings. Attending a lot of these hearings in the past, a lot of times there's nobody there besides the partners, which they represent the whole state. New Mexico school boards, the unions. But I think it's great to have that personal touch to be able to share your individual story, especially in front of a committee who's going to decide whether or not they're going to fund something. So I think it's very crucial for us to at least be present, raise a hand, and ask to be heard. And it's always great when the board president can do that, along with the superintendent and members of the board. But if not, a designee of the board is also great to be part of that.
Thank you. We'd be prepared. We'd be willing to do that.
Mr. President, thank you. And I'll keep you posted, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mr.
Superintendent. Thank you.
Mr. Perez, let's continue on.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Next up is the annual budget development. I know that the board is very interested in knowing how and when the process is going to occur. So we've asked Mr. Maldonado to share.
Okay, well, you cut out there, so I'm just going to assume I'm ready to start. Mr.
You're
Board
on.
President. Okay, Mr. Board President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent. Here is our new budget building task and deadlines that I'm proposing for this coming year with the eye, of ensuring that we are truly transparent and reaching out to all different stakeholders asking for feedback, and that we also are looking to make sure that we are gathering as many facts and figures for what's going to impact the budget this coming year, with an eye on maintaining our strategic plan. So we're starting today with our initial presentation to you as a board to just walk you through some of the proposed dates and activities. On Thursday, February 3rd, we're hoping to meet with the Board Finance Committee, whatever comprises that at that point, and then to review upcoming issues that might affect the budget that we're seeing both out of the legislative session, but also just in general with state funding that's rolling over from the previous year. And then we want to review our position and the status of the Carissa and ARP funding to date, and where we have made encumbrances and where we intend to spend that money currently. Then February 16th through the 18th is the New Mexico Association of School Business Officials Winter Conference. We assume, and I'm assuming, that that's going to be one big data download of issues that came up in the legislative session, bills that were passed, and that will enable us to take that information and integrate it into our budget building process, making sure that we are building into that all that the state is going to be asking of us, and then also how that affects maybe our strategy and our approach. So that's going to be a very important first sort of 60 days ahead of us right there. Once we're able to gather all of that information and make it into one coherent piece and presentation, we'll begin working on the PED budget forms and then starting our tribal consultations. I've already spoken with Mr. Perez and Ms. Pascal in an effort to start kind of carving out what days and times we can begin those presentations and feedback sessions with the various tribes in Navajo Nation. And then, of course, we'll also making a presentation to the staff and holding community forums like we did before, all with the eye and the intention of gathering as much input and being as open as possible with what our strategic goals are, what the issues are facing the district and the state, and how we propose to meet those. Then on March 1st, I'm hoping to have an update for the board to give you an idea of where we are, begin meeting with the principals and the directors regarding their staffing needs as well, because that could change. And then on March 17th, we're going to complete our staffing plan and begin our awards estimates for federal funding, and hoping to meet again with the Board Finance Committee. Then we have our spring budget workshop, another important workshop through the NMASBO, because that's when we begin to receive our unit value, puts actual money in place for us in order to budget. So that's going to be a really important date as well. And then by April 12th, we hope to have our draft budget completed so that we can review it with the executive team and Mr. Superintendent Mr. Perez, so that we can then take that budget review, the draft budget, to the Finance Committee on the 12th, in order for them to walk through it with a lice comb, so that we can make sure that we answer all the questions, and then provide that draft ready to take to the board. And then we'll update the PED budget forms. We'll finish all that. We'll update all the balances, and hopefully take that to the board presentation for approval on the 19th, and then submit that on the 22nd. Everything is due to the PED on the 15th, but because of our board schedule, they've allowed us a week or so. So in summary, here's our stakeholder involvement. You can see here the amount of outreaches that we're making for the various stakeholders, and so that we can give them opportunity to input for the board. So any questions I can answer about these particular deadlines? Any comments?
Board members? Board members, this is, as Board Member Jones knows, is a reflection of previous timelines, because the state does specify certain decisions to be made by the board to be submitted to the state. And so if one were to look at the state's finance section of their website, they would see something similar to this. The February 3 meeting of the board finance committee described that for us.
Well, are you talking to me or Mr. Perez?
To you.
Okay. Customarily, that is 2 board members, 2 community members, like a parent and a community member, as well as staff. And the role of that is to review in more detail the items that we're presenting from a finance standpoint. They also review financial reports and other things as well. But it can also serve as the budget committee for the school board. And this past year, it consisted of board members Ortiz and Dr. Guy, as well as Mr. Perez, April Cash, and Gary Atencio, as well as myself and Cynthia Wilson from my office, and other people we brought in as needed, but those are the core members. So we would be looking to, we need a new finance committee or the same, whichever the board, whatever the pleasure of the board is, but we're hoping to get that in place by the 3rd.
There's a potential conflict with respect to the date. Let me look. On February, from February 3 through 5, the NMSBA Board Institute is occurring in Santa Fe. And so those of us who are attending that will not be able to participate in that meeting that you have scheduled for the 3rd. I would suggest moving it to the 2nd.
Oh, absolutely. This is, I just put a stake in the ground, so it's really at the pleasure and the discretion of the board. So I can be very flexible. Mr. Perez can give me instruction on when that can be.
Yeah, let us look over this this process, these timelines. If there's any changes, we can discuss that with Mr. Perez and you. The NMSBO is the 16th through 18th, okay.
That's perfect time, perfect timing for the Masville Winter Conference. It's great timing for us.
So board members, we need to identify which 2 board members are going to participate in this. And how many meetings are we talking about?
I have 3 so far. Well, we can have more, but I have 3 so far in that period.
Well, our circumstances have changed to some degree as individual board members. We may have to be much more flexible with respect to the time of these meetings. And so we may have to have meetings occur later in the afternoon on certain days. So that's one of the issues that we've always had in the past, is trying to get everyone involved. I would suggest that we start afresh with a new board, with new stakeholder participants. Members of the board, our district, excuse me, our district policy on budget development does require a committee of this sort. So it is an essential part of our response, the district responsibility, to ensure that the community and the board are involved with developing the budget each year. So that's how it plays out. So any board members who are interested in participating in this, let me know, let Mr. Perez know. I think I can make this. If there's another board member willing to do this, let's reach out to any of the board members. We got Mr. Ortiz and Ms. Hunt Daly, and we got Ms. Lundstrom and Mr. Jones who can let us know. I think probably they'd want to know dates and times to make it flexible. So why don't we get back with any of you board members who are interested, please let us know this week, so we can see what is the best, which two desire to participate. Okay, thank you. No other questions? Board members, let's continue on to the next item.
Yeah, Mr. President, board, the next item to present is on the facility master plan and capital expenditures, which fits hand in hand. And this facility master plan is the driver of our capital spending planning. We like to be proactive with preventative and also futuristic in our thinking and planning to do the best with these dollars that we accumulate. So with this, I have Mr. Lee to share.
Good evening, Board President, members of the board, Mr. Perez. I was asked to give a brief facility master plan update, and just to kind of inform with regards to the facility master plan, and then maybe talk about a few projects that are either in planning or are in construction. If you look at this list, items as I'm talking, items 7 and then 9 through 19 are what I'll be talking about. Also be talking about 4 and 5. I'd like to bring your attention to those fire alarm. There's 8 of them, fire alarm intercom projects, one of which you'll be considering tonight for approval. There's one HVAC replacement project out at Laguna. Also the roof replacement out at Laguna, to do those two in conjunction with one another. There's a septic system replacement project out at Cabero, and then various smaller projects, such as there's an HVAC controls project that we're just finishing up, and others, not to mention the blue water replacement and the Mesa View replacement projects. Blue water is about to go into bid for a contractor, and Mesa View, we are just starting actual design on it. We've completed the programming for that. The reason I bring these up is all of these projects are either specifically identified or they're referenced in the 2017-2022 facility master plan. That facility master plan is the guiding document for capital improvements at Grant-Cibola County Schools. The spreadsheet that you see is well, a facility master plan is not a fluid document, really. It's a document that's created or revised every 5 years. And once it's created, you work within that document for those 5 years until you develop an updated one. The spreadsheet that you see is actually a kind of a fluid document. As we identify the needs and priorities of the district, then they either come up that priority list, they might fall down that priority list, but also you'll see the funding sources, and those funding sources are sometimes what drives that priority, whether we have the funding available and if it's applicable to the project itself, such as CARES, CARISA, American Recovery Program, SB 9 and Go Bond. Those have some specific parameters that we have to follow when we go to make those expenditures. As we move into another facility master plan cycle, if you'll recall, I said 2017 through 2022. That means this year is the last year of our 5-year facility master plan, and so we've begun the development. I have a facility master plan steering committee made up of about 15 individuals, some community, some district personnel, and we're going into that new cycle. And there's a new priority challenge that is presenting itself, and we've had 2 meetings now, and we've been wrestling with this new priority, which is teacher housing. It's becoming a priority as it's directly related to the recruitment and retention of staff. And the state of New Mexico, through the Public School Capital Outlay Council and the PSFA, they are devoting some funding to teacher housing. Because it's something new from the PSFA, we definitely want to evaluate that and see what needs we have and how we can meet those needs and how we can afford that priority. But I think we're starting to realize that it is very important in the recruitment and retention of staff. And so that the Facility Master Plan Committee, we are working this month to develop we're doing some staff surveys. We are looking at operational costs. We're looking at construction costs and other things other variables associated with that, and to see where it fits in our 2022 through 2026 facility master plan. So we'll be bringing that to you as we learn more about our district needs and the funding sources that are there. That said, the facility master plan is a 5-year strategic plan, basically for capital improvement projects, and we will be bringing all of those new projects to you that will fall within that plan, and with a budget and how we intend to propose that these are paid for, that's really the process. It's a kind of a long-term process. Sometimes there are items that we might not have anticipated 5 years ago, but here we are in 2022, and they've become more of an emergency issue rather than a priority issue, which means that they would float to the top. And so that's how the facility master plan works. And we develop that plan once every 5 years, but then annually we get together as a group and we see where we're at and if those priorities need to change. And then sometimes, like I said, we have an emergency that comes up and we deal with those emergencies. So I would entertain any questions you have. I know it was fairly general, but I would entertain any questions you might have regarding the facility master plan.
Hi, yes, I have a question. So as far as the Blue Water Elementary School replacement, what are you thinking as far as when you will be able to break ground?
We're anticipating trying to break ground early this summer, probably April or May. there is one thing that's interesting the last couple of years with the supply chain shortage and other factors that, of course, COVID goes without mention. The contractors are having a very difficult time procuring things such as steel and other building materials. And so what we're finding, and we're one of the schools that's currently building, we're all having to give a procurement period for the general contractor. So we anticipate trying to get that award out in February and then give them 4 or 5 months to try to get the procurement of those materials. And we're hoping that we break ground sometime May, June, somewhere in there. That's our intent right now. I know things have seemed a little slower lately, but we didn't want to go break ground and then things sit with nothing happening for months. That's not a good way to build a building either, because the contractor would have to mobilize, break it down, go off to another job, and then trying to get them back to remobilize. So we're trying to work the RFP in a way that the procurement period is within the contract itself, which is kind of new. I've never, in 10 years of doing this, I've never dealt with having this scenario where we had such a shortage of materials. So.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
If not, what we will do, board members, we need to bring this up again in February so that we are clear on what direction we're going to take with respect to the new facilities master plan. And remember, the master plan is what we as a board approve based upon all of the evaluations of need, the prioritizations of those needs, identification of any critical facilities issues that surface, and then we can then have a dialogue on that and make sure we have our priorities. If we need to revise them or sustain them as they are, we will need to become educated as to the sources of funding for the small and large facility needs, and be aware that sometimes we may be able to obtain sources of funding sooner than we expect. We need to understand where the primary funds come from and what are the conditions, requirements for obtaining the funding. Bottom line is we as a school district, as a county, approve bonds that are related to facilities. And we need to see how that fits into our overall plan. Mr. Pettis, I think that concludes our discussion on the facilities master plan.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Let's continue on. Action items, Mr. Pettis.
Okay, the first action item, Mr. President, Board. A revision to the annual budget, the 21-22 annual budget, to include the adjustment of a classified salary schedule.
Okay, we've had a discussion in a presentation. At this point, I entertain a motion to approve the recommended revision of the annual budget to include the adjustment of the classified salary schedule. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Board Member Jones makes the motion, and Board Member Alicia Lundstrom seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Emily Hunt Bailey, Richard Jones,
Aye.
Alicia Lundstrom,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz, Dr. Barashambo.
Yes. Continuing on.
Okay, Mr. President, the next action item. I recommend that the board approve the purchase of a system replacement upgrade for Mount Taylor Elementary School.
It was in your board packet that you may have seen. We can discuss that later in debate. Is there a motion to approve the purchase of a system replacement for Mount Taylor Elementary School?
I make a motion to approve.
Their motion has been made by Alicia Lundstrom to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second has been made by Richard Jones. Is there any discussion? Any final questions about it? Pros and cons? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Stephen Hunt Bailey. Richard Jones.
Aye.
Alicia Lundstrom.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz. Dr. Barashambo.
Aye. Mr. Perez, continuing on consent agenda.
Okay, Mr. President, board, I recommend that the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I make a motion, we approve.
Motion has been made to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
There's a second. Seconded by Alicia Lundstrom. Call for the vote. Roll call.
Stephen Hunt Bailey. Richard Jones.
Aye.
Alicia Lundstrom.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz. Dr. Barashambo.
Yes. Let's continue on. We're down to superintendent's report. Mr. Perez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, board, I think it's good that everybody knows what's going on with the COVID virus in the district. I've asked Miss Sonia Hernandez to be on with us just to give a brief and current status. As I opened up earlier in the board meeting, we had many cases. We do have many cases in the district. And when I talked to Sonia earlier, she was still counting because she was adding up the last few days. So Ms. Hernandez, are you on?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I have the count on the Grand Cibolo County Schools website updated up until yesterday. And it is 164 for this month. And I haven't entered today's. I'm working on that now as we speak. Well, not entering into the website, but I'm working on the reports to send to the state.
Can you just give us a brief numbers? Do you have them on where you're at there?
Okay, so then I will, hang on, give me 1 second. Okay, so if you go to Grand Cibolo County Schools website, there's a link that you can go to and it has an ongoing tally. So ever since we've been tracking this monthly, it started in August of 2020 that we started doing the tally here on the website. And it started off in August 2020. And if you look at it, if you're able to see it, it has 3, and then every month it continues on. And then, so for this school year, we started off in August of 2021. We had 29, in September 51, October 80, November 57, December was 43. And then if you see for this month, it's 164, and that was up until yesterday. And then below, it also separates them into age groups. So 0 to 17, there's 385, 18 to 39, we have 70, 40 to 64, we have 87, 65 to 84, we have 10. And so that's a total of 552. That's everything tallied up.
Thank you. Sonia.
You're welcome.
So that's ongoing, and we'll periodically keep the board informed about how that's coming along. And then just to reiterate that we do follow the processes and protocols that the board approved as we move through all these cases. And once again, doing everything we can to keep our students face-to-face at the schools. Thank you.
Mr. Perez, board members, any questions?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Perez, let's continue.
Okay, Mr. President, as you know, we've talked about the strategic plan periodically. We have been working on that throughout the months. And I asked Dr. Williams to join us this evening just to give an update on where we're at with that.
Mr. President, members of the board, superintendent, thank you for having me here this evening. Real quick, we are almost in the completion stages of the strategic plan. Just got a couple things I need to adjust on that. I'm in the process of adding pictures throughout the strategic plan. Member Secretary Lundstrom, I need your photograph so that I could put it in the front. And if there's any board member, yes.
So yeah, we just got that in Lorraine. Well, Lorraine has that photo and she can send that to you.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I'll take care of that as soon as I get it. And if there's any other board member that would like to change their picture from the previous strategic plan to this one, please get it to me. I'll add it in to show off all of our gray hair and balding heads. I'll take care of that.
I want the younger picture.
And if you want a younger, slimmer picture to put in there, send it on over. We'll do it.
I didn't say slimmer. I said younger.
Really, we're right at that point where I've asked the superintendent if we could get on the agenda next board meeting to have the completed plan at the final rough draft for the board to look it over and get some time to and then possibly approve it in another board meeting. So we're right at that stage. I just wanted to give you an update. Is there any questions? Are there any questions that you may have for me?
Board members' comments on the strategic plan?
No.
Mr. Is it Dr. Williams? No?
Yeah,
Dr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
Yes, the strategic plan is extremely important in that it's meant to drive a lot of other system decision-making.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to influence change for specific purposes, goals that each of the schools must participate in whatever their dash plan says. We know that the state has always required plans, such as EPS plans, as you remember in days gone by.
Yes, sir.
And those plans typically are in need of aligning with or having the budget and all of our programs align with the strategic plan to the extent possible. So that when we as a board are making decisions throughout the year, we need to know whether or not our decisions for funding of various programs are addressing the goals set forth in the plans, that those goals are reflective of prioritized needs in various areas. Currently, we have 4 areas, 4 goal areas. And we need to ensure that those goals are measurable. And measurable in the sense that they are going to produce or document expected improvements in student success, however we measure that, which could be academics, which can be graduation rates, a variety of things. And we need to ensure that we're going to address that plan addresses all the needs of the students, from those who are highly at risk and those who are advanced honors gifted students, those who have special needs. We need to ensure that our strategic plan addresses those things. So at the next board meeting, we need to have a discussion of that sort so that we can educate ourselves and you can educate us as to the scope of our new strategic plan. We have so many different competing interests or different diverse interest groups who are interested in influencing our decisions. We have the state saying that we should do this or that. We have other interest groups. We have tribes, we have communities who say they desire us to focus on specific areas. We need to make sense of all of that and have it be workable. Historically, strategic plans get put in the top desk drawer and we don't see them again. And if we're to ask individual teachers and staff persons, they may struggle to try to figure out what it is that we say are our goals. So it has to be something that is meaningful for everybody, simply understood.
Yeah.
And that's really critical.
Yeah.
So as we start to think about finalizing this, the board must be really comfortable with what it sees is our direction for the next multiple years. And that's the challenge for us, is to base all of our decisions, our evaluations of staff, of schools, upon this document, this pathway. Those are my thoughts for you, Dr. Williams. And I'm hoping that you can pull off a magnificent presentation at the next meeting.
You got it. Dr. Ashambo, Mr. President, I think you're so right. If it's a plan that confuses people, that is not easy to follow, that basically ends up on that shelf or in the drawer, as you were talking about, then it's really not a plan. It's just a document that is created and it's useless. So I'm hoping through what I present to you and the board and working with Mr. Perez, that it actually becomes a real live plan that is able to change the lives of the students that you serve. Absolutely. I'm with you.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I do have a question. Do you have a timeline or a calendar like Mr. Maldonado had for the budget?
Ms. Lundstrom, what do you mean?
Well, for the strategic plan, just so we know what needs to happen first, second, third, and if there's, times associated with the steps that need to be put in place.
Absolutely, absolutely. As a timeline laid out. Sometimes the timeline is wide spans of period because of the work that the school district is doing, but there in other areas, there are specific times when things need to be completed in the strategic plan. So yes, I can go over that when I present the whole entire plan to the board as well. I've been working with the leadership, the superintendent and then directors, even principals, going over the timeline and ensuring that it's reasonable, it's doable, things of that nature as well. So yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Let's continue on. We've skipped the executive session. And now we're coming to One moment, please. Okay. On the advice of, we are down to the consideration of approval of revision of superintendent evaluation process and timelines. That was what we have here before us. But in order for us to do more than delete the executive session, which was a part of the required beginning of the required evaluation of the superintendent, we need to recognize that our regulation states that and it is a regulation, it's not a policy. The regulation states that we would enter into the evaluation of the superintendent in January. In order for us to delay the beginning of the evaluation, we need to pass a motion that that recognizes that we're going to go into the first part of, well, the next meeting. So what I'd like to do is to state to entertain a motion that Mr. Perez, if I give this to the board and you can make, if you feel so inclined, you can recommend that this occurs. And let me read this to you. It says, according to board regulation, according to board policy, the board must evaluate the superintendent each school year. The regulation from the policy indicates that this must take place in January. However, all the board members not able to attend tonight's meeting to continue the process. As such, I will entertain a motion. This is the motion to suspend the regulation and reset the evaluation of the superintendent for February for this school year only. I will read that again. I will entertain a motion to suspend the regulation and reset the evaluation of the superintendent for February of this school year only. Board members, do we understand the purpose?
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
It's better to just not take action right now rather than adding an action item that was not on the agenda, or we did not amend the agenda for that action. Do you understand what I'm saying? I know what we're trying to do, and I'm agreeant with you.
Yes,
but to stay in the rules, we can just not take action at all, and by default it goes to February. But if you're adding an action item that was not on the approved agenda, you got to be careful there.
Ms. Lundstrom, how do you feel about that, Ms. Lundstrom?
I guess whatever the rules are, just have to, stay within the rules. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And Mr. Sanchez.
Mr. Sanchez, are you available?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Board Member Jones suggested, it sounds reasonable too, that we just let the amendment of the agenda to delete the executive session to be sufficient.
Your action item was to discuss and accept or discuss and approve the process for the evaluation. While it was contemplated that you would have more of that process set forth once you had the executive session, you obviously are not having that. So this is addressing the process. There's no surprise here about that. And while you could just ignore a rule or regulation or a policy, you can't. It's not favorable. It's better to give the public notice of what you're actually doing and what the board is doing at this point. The action item was about the evaluation process. This is about the evaluation process. That motion still fits in with that agenda item.
Okay, essentially what we're saying is that it provides the public with an understanding of what it is that we are doing in relative to our policy and regulation.
And your agenda item was for you guys to set and let the public know what your process was going to be for evaluation.
unfortunately, at this point, is pretty limited to, you guys are gonna do it next month.
Mr. Jones, I would prefer that we do, for the purposes of ensuring the public is fully aware of what we are doing, that we go ahead and ask for a motion to do what I had asked.
I'm okay with it as long as do you understand my worry there, which Mr. Sanchez clarified?
Mr. Jones, absolutely. We don't want to be talking about things that are not on the agenda, absolutely. But the process was on the agenda.
Okay, then I'm fine with that. And then Dr. Guy, you can make the motion saying what you said, just so we get it right.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I appreciate you looking for always a common sense approach so that we would do this, and we are able to work through a discussion of this sort. Let me bring that back up again. Excuse me, got a sore throat. Whoops. Wrong location. I entertain a motion to suspend the regulation and reset the evaluation of the superintendent for February of this school year only. Is there a motion?
Oh, I make a motion.
The motion has been made by Alicia Lundstrom to suspend the regulation and reset for February of this year only. Mr. Jones, are you willing to make a second on this?
Sure, I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote.
Emily Hunt Bailey. Richard Jones.
Aye.
Alicia Lundstrom.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz. Dr. Guyers-Hamel.
Yes. Motion is passed. We will suspend the regulation and reset the evaluation of the superintendent for February of the school year only. Let's continue on. Consideration of board comments. Mr. Board members, there was a request by Mr. Jones and I think concurred by Emily that we consider putting board comments back on. So what I put a little note on the side, alongside of it says board discussion on purpose, pros and cons with legal counsel helping us to provide guidance for that. Mr. Sanchez, would you provide us some guidance with respect to board comments?
Okay, when it comes to the conduct of a board meeting, certainly the board creates its own manner in which it wants to conduct the meetings, including, Robert's Rules of Orders, modified Robert Rules of Order, whatever you guys want to do that, whether you accept, motions require a second or they don't. All of those things, those mechanisms are the boards. The issue of board members having a comment period during a board meeting, here's the problem that you have with it, and I'll be honest with you. The problem with it's basically a public comment for the board. Now, the issue that transpires that is of concern that the board should, when thinking about how to conduct the meetings, is regards to the Open Meetings Act. The public's entitled under the Open Meetings Act to see how you guys conduct business, whether it's including discussions about stuff that's not going to be acted upon. That's why they require that the agendas be with some specificity so the public can go and watch you do your business. Public comment is not even a requirement of the OMA, okay? The public is entitled to see you do your business. They're not entitled to participate in the process. However, board members are part of the process. Here's the drawback that you have if you basically have a board comment period that has some potential pitfalls in it. If a board member starts talking during that comment section about something that is not on the agenda and solicits even a minor response from another board
You cut
member
out, Mr.
about
Luis
it,
Sanchez.
you violate
cut
the
out.
own.
I can hear him great.
Okay, so that's the issue that's the first stumbling block that you have if you have a comment period. If you're speaking outside of the agenda, all it takes is another board member to make a comment or feel compelled to make a comment, and you have now debated an item not on the agenda. Why is that so important? Is because when you're out there and you're doing board member duties, you're wearing a separate hat. Now, in the past, what has happened is school board members have decided that they would participate in public comment by basically excusing themselves from the board meeting and then putting on their parent hat or their citizen's hat and then make public comment. Okay, that is also creates some issues that need to be addressed to make sure everybody knows what hat you are wearing when you're speaking. But what's very clear is if you have a board comment section, you are in fact wearing your board member hat. You're going to be limited to the agenda, or if you speak outside of the agenda, you could get somebody in the public to say, I had no idea the board was going to discuss X, and it wasn't on the agenda. Even though no other board member commented, even though nothing came of it, there was no formal discussion, there were no formal actions, somebody can say that. I think that you're going to run into the issue of the Attorney General seeing that a board member is putting out some sort of an opinion on something that even the slightest bit related to the operation of that public entity, the public should have noticed that comment is going to happen or that topic is going to be discussed. That's the drawback. What is also available to the board member, however, is that when you are going through items on the agenda and you are doing discussion items and you are doing action items, you have the right, whether under modified Robert's Rules of Order or just under general common sense, board members have the ability to comment and discuss, argue, disagree, agree with regards to those discussion items and agenda items and action items. And quite frankly, debate is what was foreseen by when there was a motion, a second, and then there's discussion, is the idea is now as basically legislators, you're entitled to debate that. So with regards to the agenda items, you are clearly within the OMA. It's on the agenda. It's a discussion item or an action item. And if you have an opinion about it, let loose. And you can solicit and actually get a debate with another member of the board, whether they agree, support you, or don't support you. And the public knows about it. And if they want to see how you guys decide an issue, you're free to come or free to attend. Okay. And quite frankly, if you'd have public comment and they're talking about something on the agenda, you can engage with somebody in public comment if it's on the agenda. Okay. So I think that, and Mr. Jones had brought up very much concerned about, we don't want to be doing things off the agenda. You also don't want to give the public the idea that I need to come to the board comment section because somebody's going to talk about something that I might be interested in. And if the matter becomes controversial, it's very hard for the other 4 board members not to engage in the debate. Okay, it's very hard to sit there and say, well, that person's wrong or that's not entirely true and not be able to, because remember, if you have public comment and somebody is talking about something not on the agenda, the board's only response is thank you very much, next. Same thing holds if you have basically a public comment section for board members. And that's going to be very, I'm just saying the idea is it's good in its sense. I'm not sure if it works out practically in the practical setting of a board meeting when a board member feels strongly about wanting to talk about a subject that's not on the agenda. And I'm not sure how we would work in the dynamics of the board meeting and of the board relationship with each other if somebody uses the board comment section to lay out an opinion and the other members are actually handcuffed and can't say, are gagged and they can't say anything about it until the next board meeting.
Mr. Sanchez, some time back, I remember the way that this section was used was for a board member to say, express appreciation for or compliment someone that they heard during the meeting, or they would commend the football team or something else that happened. And that was sort of an innocuous comment that was made by board members. I remember those were some of the things that I can recall being said. But board members, what are your thoughts?
Well, before you do that, Mr. Board President, also be aware, if you have it on your agenda, recognition of the football team, when you have that matter come up on the agenda, every board member is entitled, because it's a discussion item or in fact an action item, if you guys are going to formally recognize something, state championship, all board members are entitled to speak at that time. So if it's on the agenda, it's almost, if it's not an action item, it has to be considered a discussion item. So if it's on the agenda, every board member has an opportunity to speak on that agenda item.
Okay.
Or ask questions. Or make comments.
Okay. Mr. Lundstrom or Mr. Jones?
Yeah, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. That helps me a lot. My only concern was it was there for the last 10 years. We had board comments, then all of a sudden they were gone. All I raised the question is, where were they? And Dr. Archambault is correct. We usually use it as very casual, hey, great job, all you, whoever the recognitions were, but I can move that back up to when it is in the agenda. I'm fine with leaving them off now. My biggest question was all of a sudden they just weren't there. And you did make a lot of sense. And maybe I will be more vocal during the discussion part and not after. I was just curious why they were there for 10 years and now they're not there. That was my biggest concern.
And if you recall, Richard and Alicia, Emily did express some support for board comments at the last board meeting. Am I correct, Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Yeah, so we may still have to have this discussion at the next board meeting, but what I'd like to do is to make sure we provide opportunities throughout the board meeting at the appropriate times to make to ensure our own comments are made throughout the meeting, as Mr. Sanchez had said. And I don't think that, I'm pretty sure Mr. Jones or the other board members were thinking that they might be making comments that would cause some conflict with OMA. I think and that is of concern to all the board members, and I know Richard would not want to do that, and we all want to abide by OMA as to the extent possible, not to the extent possible, to what is expected of us, and we will do so. I would suggest that we provide an opportunity to discuss this again, but if we can, and to make sure that in our board agenda, Mr. Perez, that we highlight opportunities for the board members to make comment, to make sure that we encourage the right of board members to say what it is that they need to say throughout the meeting. Is that that's about how we're going to go on this one right now. But thank you, Mr. Jones, for bringing this up. And Alicia, I know you're new to this area, but you already have begun to express your comments and your questions throughout the meeting, and that's excellent. And Mr. Jones has always done that in the past too. We just need to ensure that we protect your right to speak up and make comments as appropriate. There are no action items to be taken at this time on that. No further no discussion at this time on that item. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanchez. Appreciate it. Let's continue on with announcements.
With your permission, I'll go ahead and drop off.
Thank you. Miss, announcements are there. One thing we did not put on was the February 3 through 5 New Mexico School Board Association Institute in Santa Fe. It needs to be stated so that that we publicly announce that board members may be in attending, and to comply with OMA, we need to make that announcement at the next board meeting again. Future agenda items. Any thoughts on the agenda items right now? If not, contact me by text or by email, or just give me a call. I talked to Mr. Perez on the agenda items. I entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion has been made to adjourn by Board Member Jones. I'll second that motion. Roll call vote.
Richard Jones,
Aye.
Lisa Lindstrom,
Aye.
Dr. Shambo.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much, board members. Appreciate you being here, being with us, and all the staff. Well done. We extend our best wishes to all of you. Meeting's ended.